Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post-Supreme Darkness. And as you can tell by the playmat, the cards, and the BGM, we are in fact talking about one of my favorite decks of all time, Mermail Atlantean, or as I call it on this channel, Ultramarine Meditation. So, Water is a deck that I have been a lifelong fan of, having played it back when it first came out in 2012. Then I played it again during Fire Water format, or Meadowlands format, is that what we call it? It was when, just after Dragonlures got like their second hits of the ban list and all the rulers went to one, it was before Hat. And you know, rank 4 Mermail, that was a blast. Then I ended up getting rid of the deck afterwards in order to fund Vanguard deck, and didn't play Mermail again until years later. I had the chance actually to pick up the deck a third time during ABC format when Mermail was once again a strong rogue pick as one of the better blind second strats. And yeah, if you go back in that format, you see that there are a couple Mermail lists from, I think it's YCS Anaheim 2016. Is that what it was? Oh, anyway, Mermail is a viable strategy during ABC format, and then that was the last time it was like truly meta. You'd still see something like this pop up now and then because like the water engine is so uniquely good at what it does. Like there was a brief time period where you would actually like slide this in with Orcust, because the Orcust Link 1, the Nightmare Link 1 discards for cost, so if you trigger Dragoons and it just kind of goes from there. But in any case, yeah, that was that. But now in 2024, this deck got a huge wave of support in Rage of the Abyss, and it got follow-up support in this new set, Supreme Darkness, and as a result, it has become a strong rogue deck once again. One of the scarier ones out there because its combo, when it fully resolves, is damn near unbeatable. But going second, it's a different story. It's harder now for Mermail to play on the boards than it was back during even ABC format because of just how board setups are. And how much more prominent hand traps are, because the last time Mermail was meta, we didn't have things like Ash Blossom or Nibiru. It was just really Valor you were trying to beat. And now that Valor, Imperm, Ash, and whatnot exist, it's a bit harder, but it's still doable, especially post SUDA because of the new Poseidon card that was released, and we'll get into that. But yeah, this is very much a deck that you will see on the local and even regional level, and frankly, if you have a good enough player behind it, it will most likely top a YCS or two, because in the hands of a competent player, it is insane to see this deck really go off. It's just right now with SUDA having been released, lines have to be refigured because of what the new monsters do, and also just figuring out what cards to play, because like you'll see differences from build to build to build. Some people are playing Coelacanth, some people are not playing Coelacanth, and then even if you are playing Coelacanth, you have different Coelacanth targets from another. So yeah, right now I think no two Mermail lists will really be the same. I think though there is like one build that I really like compared to the ones I've seen, so I'm kind of based off of this one. It's the second place list from the DB Grinder tourney, and yeah, let's just get into it. So Mermail Atlantean does require a little bit of explaining because it is an archetype that's older than the average Farfavir, having again come out in 2012. So it has things that other decks don't have, such as no once per turn on its main searcher, and you abuse that to hell now in a game where archetype searchers are once per turn and restricted at that. And another card you abuse the hell of is Net the Abyss, the Atlantean Prince. This is, I won't say the heart and soul of the deck, but it is one of the strongest cards in the deck. It's very reminiscent of Snake Eyes Ash, go figure. Yeah, this deck is, the way this deck plays now is actually kind of comparable to Full Power Snake Eyes, and that it's full board, you just honestly can't break. It's just that your engine is much larger, and therefore you don't have nearly as much room for non-engine. You still play non-engine though, because this is a modern combo deck, so you have to be able to play non-engine to stop your opponent from also setting up their boards. But I digress. So, and Net the Abyss is one of the strongest cards in the deck because he is both a starter and an extender. So the way he works is, as a once per turn, you send an Atlantean from your deck to the graveyard for cost to search your deck for an Atlantean except itself. And this is important because Atlanteans all have the shared effect of, if they're sent to the graveyard for cost of a Water Monster's effect, they trigger. which means that it's hard to kind of like hand trap this deck in the way you would with other stuff, because even if you do things like Ash, Valor, Imperm, Neptupus, you, the Mermail player, still benefit because you sent one of your key cards for cost, so now they'll trigger. And to like really stop something like this, your opponent needs 2 hand traps, and you will take that 2-for-1 trade if your hand has another extender. So yeah, there's that. And then Neptupus also has the effect of if he is sent to graveyard for cost, he revives an Atlantean except himself, which is much better now than it was before because you've got some good Atlantean targets. And speaking of Atlantean targets, one of your best ones even now, Atlantean Dragoons, who, when he's sent to the graveyard for cost of a water monster's effect, searches your deck for a sea serpent. Yeah, notice something? There is no once per turn on this because this is an old ass card from an old structure deck for a super under-supported monster type, even now, truth be told. So Konami was justified at the time for printing a non-once per turn monster type searcher with this guy, and now that they've printed some more good sea serpent monsters since then, he's just become even better. There was a point that this card was on the ban list at 1 because it was such a power card to resolve again and again and again, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe somewhere down the road, just for the sake of like future proofing, Konami just limits this guy again, because being able to dump Dragoons, to search Dragoons, and then discard that Dragoons for an effect and get 2 or more searches in the same turn it's so stupid. It also has an on-field effect that I don't think will really matter. It makes your level 3 or lower sea serpents be able to attack directly, but that's irrelevant. Anyway, so now you've got your starter and your key searcher. And one of the other things that as a key part of this deck is this new card, Abyss Shrine, the Atlantean Spirit. So what they decided to do with this, and I'll also mention Shadow Squad here, is that they've printed Atlanteans and Mermails that also are treated as the other cards. Therefore, they're searchable through their respective engines, because Mermails have a card that searches Mermails, Atlanteans have a card that searches Atlanteans. Now, your Mermails can search your Atlanteans, your Atlanteans can search your Mermails, because Konami decided, fuck it, we're making the 2 archetypes the same now. And Shadow Squad here, as a once per turn on board, can discard a card to make all your water monsters become level 7s. Discards for cost, by the way. Also, if it's sent to graveyard for cost, special summons a level 4 lower Atlantean or Mermail from your deck, except itself. Cool. Your other power card is Abyss Shrine, the Atlantean Spirit. If it's in your hand, you can tribute it as well as an Atlantean or Mermail monster from your hand or field. You search your deck for a level 7 water, aqua, or water, fish, sea serpent, or aqua, which I'm not going to say tri-type, and either add it to your hand or special summon it. This is a powerful play, especially if you're playing the build I am, where you have a bomb of a card you can summon straight from the deck, and Abyss Shrine is one of your key search targets, as it allows you to extend through certain hands of your opponent, and if you can get to the point where you resolve this card fully, there's a good chance you just straight win, because you snowball from there. It also has the effect of, if it's in your graveyard during your opponent's turn, you can banish it to discard for cost to draw. So it triggers your Atlanteans and triggers some other stuff. Yeah, she's very strong. Rounding out the Atlanteans, 1 copy of Heavy Infantry. If it's on the board, it gets a double normal summon for Sea Serpents, which comes up, but its other main use is that if it's sent for cost for a water monster's effect, it pops a face-up card your opponent controls. Not once per turn, so part of your M board involves you having this in hand or being able to like send it from deck to graveyard, and then you get the pop. And then your new card coming out of this set is Poseidon, the Storming Atlantean. So if it's in your hand, you can send a water monster, another water monster from your hand or field for cost to special summon it. And if it's normal or special summon, you can send one Atlantean Mermail from your deck to the graveyard for cost to target a card your opponent controls and bounce it. Also, if you control another monster, if your opponent cannot attack it. So, yeah, this card's very, very good. Going first, it's alright. Like, it's basically just another version of Teus, except it doesn't really like provide you any benefit like Teus does. Like, it doesn't like search with anything. But going second, though, it's great for cracking boards because you bounce things away, which is very relevant because cards like Rising Detonator are annoying to out because they can protect themselves, and normally your means of removing problem cards is through popping. But now you have this, which bounces, and it bounces anything, not just monsters, so you can bounce sets, which is very important because normally you don't have an answer to set cards unless you're playing Atlantean Marksman in main or side, but now Poseidra answers those cards. So, yeah, he's very good. He sends for cost. He's for both of his effects. It's a big body. It's a 7. One of the best things that this deck could have asked for coming out of SUDA. So moving on to the Mermails. So a common thing about the Mermails is that they usually send water monsters for cost for their effects. Pike here discards a water from hand to search a level 3 water from deck. He's a once per turn, and he's also a when you can, which I need to do a little bit of a side tangent on this too. So when you cans are an older type of card effect. You don't see them as commonly anymore, but they have this thing where if you summon them in the wrong place on a chain, they can miss the timing. And what that means is a card like this, you have to make sure that it's summoned on chain link 1 of a multi-card chain. So say for instance, both of these cards hit the graveyard at the same time. If you structure the chains where the effect is summoned, Pike is not the first thing that happens, he will miss timing, because say you go Dragoons 1, this 2, Pike hits the board, and then Dragoons uses effect to search. Well, Pike missed his opportunity to discard to search because it was not the last thing that happened. Yeah, the reason why I'm going over this is so that you don't get cheated by people who are trying to play this, because like, how often does missing the timing come up in 2025? God help us if Yang Zing ever get legacy support, because that entire archetype is all about missing the timing. But anyway, yeah, Pike is a starter, and yeah, because like you can have him discard Dragoons or Shadow Squad for cost to search Shadow Squad or Abyss Rhine, and you just go from there. And it's the better one you can summon into a board going second, because it's a on summon effect, whereas Neptupus is an ignition effect. So if you summon this and your opponent has any form of like chain removal, they'll pop this and you've wasted your normal summon. Whereas this, you can normal summon it and you can still discard and do a thing. I'm playing multiples of this because it's a level 4 lower fish, which is very relevant. And yeah. 2 copies of Mermail Abysteus. This has gone down from 3 to 2 because of Poseidra. You can discard another water to special summon it from the hand, and if it's successfully special summoned, you can search your deck for a Mermail monster except itself. I should say, if it's successfully summoned, you search your deck for a level 4 lower Mermail and add to your hand. That effect is a once per turn, but the effect of special summon is not. So if you say have this and a Dragoons in hand and your opponent has a known dominance impulse and you activate its effect to summon and they impulse it, you just discard the Dragoons, search with your Dragoons, and then you just do it again. It's kind of funny in that regard. Then rounding out for the 1 copy of Mulaglacia, the Elemental Lord. This is a Dark Arm Dragon for waters, except you need to have 5 waters in the graveyard to special summon it from the hand. But if you do, you discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand at random. Getting to the point where you resolve this is usually what turns the tide, because you're playing like a big combo deck, but now your opponent is trying to break your board with only 4 cards in hand going into their turn, which is damn near impossible unless your opponent opened specifically 3 big board breakers, like double dark, like Eclipse, Dark Ruler No More, drop in, and then like a 1-card starter. Like it, if you can resolve full combo, which involves this, you almost never lose. It also has the effect of if it leaves the field after being summoned, you skip your next turn's battle phase. But because of how the deck plays, you're able to just make it a level 7 through Shadow Squad, and then you just overlay it and exceed summon it, and you no longer have to worry about it skipping your battle phase if you set it off as material. 1 copy of Deep Sea Minstrel. It's a level 3 Sea Serpent Tuner monster. So it's searchable through Pike, it's searchable through Dragoons, and it also has the effect that if it's in your hand, you can discard it in another water monster to look at your opponent's hand and banish a card from it until the end of the turn. What are your best ways of playing through certain hand traps like Droll or Nib is just using this guy. If you can set it up, you can get to this guy before your 5th summon, because you just search it with Dragoons. And you just discard it alongside, say, Dragoons to look at your opponent's hand and pick out the most damaging hand trap to your turn, and then you go from there. Opening these 2 in particular is often like just game on the spot, because you just get to search Neptupus off Dragoons and you just go from there. It also has the effect of, if it's summoned, you can mill the top 3 cards of your deck for cost to take a level 4 lower water monster and either bot deck it or top deck it, which is really neat for like getting things out of your grave. Like say if you had to discard a heavy infantry earlier in your turn because you just drew it and you don't want it in your graveyard, you want to search it later, you can just mill 3, bot deck this, and then you can send Dragoons for cost for another effect and then search it later. Or hey, you can mill Dragoons for this guy's cost. Bot deck this and then have Dragoons search this right back. Kind of funny how that happens. Then I'll put these two together. One copy of Super Ichi King Coelacanth and one copy of Gluttonous Reptolfin Grievous. So, as I mentioned, your Abyss Rhine is a bit of a bomb if it can go off, and one of your biggest bombs you can summon is this thing, because it's a level 7 tri-type that this summons. So, Coelacanth, or Big Fish, as a once per turn, can discard a card to summon as many level 4 lore fish monsters from the deck, which will be your Abyss Pikes, and then your fish tuner monster of choice. And there's a couple other options. You've got either Shift, the Goatee Fairy, which is a level 2 that if it's banished, summons itself back to your opponent's turn, and then you can quick effect synchro summon a fish monster. I don't like this now because the main target for that would be the Goatee of the Deep Beyond. And in a format where Malice exists, banishing your opponent's whole board, including your own, just seems incredibly unwise. There's also Fishborg Harpooner, but I honestly just don't like that card. Like, the main reason you're playing that is so you can get access to level 8 synchros. So I'm going with this guy, Grievous, as he has a kind of relevant effect. Once per turn, you can target a card of one tri-type in your graveyard whose level is equal to or less than the cards in your opponent's hand, which will often be 2, 3, or less, and special summon. It can activate its effects. And then also, if it's used as synchro material, the synchro summon monster gains 200 attack for every card in your opponent's hand on summon, which doesn't seem like much, but it does allow your synchro monster to get big enough to beat over certain attack thresholds, which you normally couldn't, because your attack otherwise caps out at 3,000 in this deck, and your means of removing monsters is through targeting or just monster-based removal. So something like a Dark Chaos Angel, or yeah, I think it's Dark Chaos Angel, the one where it's unaffected by card effects. That's annoying as hell to beat because you need to get it over through battle or through like a trap card otherwise. And I'm not playing the one trap card in this deck, so I would have to rely on just beating it over. And this allows you to do that. And basically what happens here is like you will have some lines where you summon this back later during your combo and it's able to activate its effect, and then you just revive like a Neptibus, and then you can go into a level 10 synchro, or you can just immediately go into a 10 off of this. It's just, yeah, it's a fish tuner monster you can summon off Coelacanth that can be revived off of Coral Anemone if you have to go that route, that also just does something else. So that's that. Then rounding out the engine, one copy of Bisting Triana. It's a premature burial for a Mermail and Atlantean, so on play, revive a Mermail and Atlantean from your hand or graveyard, non-targeting by the way, and if the equipped monster be killed by your opponent, you can send it to the graveyard instead. And if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it to shuffle back one each, three tri-type monsters, I should say. So it's useful for recycling your Xyz monsters back to your extra deck. And then one Abyss Team. So this is a new card coming out of the set. Its effect is on activation, you draw cards equal to the different type of monsters among your tri-types, so fish, aqua, sea serpent. Most end boards is just 2 of the 3, so you'll draw 2. And if it's in your graveyard and your water monster gets killed by your opponent, you can banish it to add 1 Mermail monster from your graveyard banishment to your hand. It's alright. It's honestly a win more, but your new Xyz monster detaches to set one of these from the deck, and of the choices that you have, it's either this or Abyss Sphere, and I like this more. Admittedly, Abyss Sphere lets you do some cheeky plays, such as summon Pike from deck and then Pike discard infantry for cost, and it gets negated, but you still get the pop. I don't know. This honestly will probably get cut. It just depends on how often I actually want to resolve that detach effect, because there are some really fringe scenarios where you will be able to detach for cost and trigger your Atlantean. But anyway, that's it for engine. Moving on to non-engine, we are playing 6 Charmies, because this is the type of deck that benefits from the Charmies drawing you not only hand traps to stop your opponent, but just drawing more engine, because as you may have noticed, this is a deck that benefits greatly from having 2-card combos. So having Atlanteans and Mermails to draw into means it's a lot easier for you to break your opponent's board. And while this deck can struggle to break through full combo boards, half boards, you just completely shred thanks to things like Poseidra and infantry. So yeah, 6 Charmies. Perulia gets a special mention because it is a water Charmy, so you can, at worst, discard it for your water costs, Pike and Teus, or you can use it to discard for other stuff and trigger stuff. And because of the level 4 water with less than 1500 attack, you can revive off of Coral and M&A. So like, if you can't get both Charmies at the moment, this is the one I would prioritize getting, just because it actually has synergy with this deck, whereas Fulos is just a good card. But Fulos is getting reprinted, so you can at least get that. Hopefully, Brilliant also gets reprinted. After that, it's just standard hand traps: 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, 3 Imperm, and 3 Talents, because this deck baits out hand traps like no tomorrow. I kind of want to put a Called By in here, but I'm already at 43 cards, and I don't want to go to 44. Then moving on to the extra deck. So first up, we'll go over the Xyz monsters because they are a bulk of your play. So 1 copy of Mermail Abyss Gaios, takes 2 level 7s to make, and 2 level 7 waters, I should say. And it has some interesting effects. The first one is that while it has materials, level 5 and higher monsters cannot declare attacks. It's both sides, by the way, which isn't as bad for you anymore because most of your end board is Xyz and Link monsters. But it's hilarious in the context of the meta we're going into, because Kashtira as an engine is very prominent in a lot of decks, and Gaios' materials prevents Kashtiras from attacking. So Fenrir, Unicorn, they just sit there. And also, as a quick effect, you can detach to mass negate your opponent's entire board of monsters whose attack stats are equal or less than this card's own. So he's 2800, so that's a lot of things that he just straight negates. Like that full Kashtira board, you just negate Unicorn, Fenrir. And since it detaches for cost, you can potentially trigger some things. So yeah, Gaios is a pretty strong inboard piece that you actually will summon now, because you don't have to use it as your rank up material into your Poseidra Abyss, which came out last set. So this is an Xyz monster that can be Xyz summoned over any Mermail or Atlantean Xyz monster. Otherwise, it takes 3+ level 7s to make. No, it's just 3 7s, I should say. And its effect is, once per turn, you detach 2 materials, as well as send a water monster from your hand or deck to graveyard for cost to non-target downs up to 3 cards your opponent controls. And if it's Xyz summoned and sent to the graveyard, you can discard for cost to summon back 3 level 3 or lower tri-types from your graveyard. This card is insane, and going first is a soul charge, going second is a soul charge that also is just a bounce 3. Like, this is part of how you break your opponent's board and kill them, is you just bounce back 3 cards, send your goons for cost, and get an extender, and you just go in. Like, this card is insane, and I kind of want to play a second copy, not gonna lie. Like, you could potentially build this deck to just be straight blind second, crack boards, and kill, much like how it did back during ABC format, with this being one of the centerpieces around that. And then coming out of this new set is Abyss Trite, the Atlantean Spirit. So this takes 2+ level 7 water monsters to make, and this is your new first level 7 Xyz you make instead of this. As on summon, it revives the level 7 or lower tri-type from graveyard, and then you can also detach to set an Abyss Trap card from your deck. So this, or Abyss Sphere. Again, not sure how much I want to actually care about that second effect to actually play the trap card. Like, I could cut the trap and play Called By instead. We'll have to see. It also has the effect of all your water monsters gain 300 attack and defense for each one of these materials. So it also just gets big. It's also pretty big itself. Like, 2100 attack is not much, but 2000 defense with the material, it'll be a 3000 ass most of the time. And it's also 2+ water monsters. So if your board is just flooded with monsters and you need to just get them all away, you can stack 3 under this thing and go from there. Then 2 copies of Bahamut Shark, because you can make it, and 2 copies of his partner in crime. Totally awesome. Your end board will usually consist of a minimum of 1 Toads, but usually 2. And yeah, Bahamut Shark has been a card from Mermail for a long time. Supplementary rank 4s, Dweller, and Kragan. Dweller is just a powerful card in general in this format, and the effect to buff your board by 500 because it has a water material is also how you can just close out some games. Kragan is just a card you go into if you get hand trapped by certain hand traps, particularly Droll and Shifter. If you can't get the Coelacanth, then you're going to be going for this instead. It's not great, but it's like one of the better options you have if you get Shifter. Once per turn, you can target a water monster on the board, kill it, and inflict damage equal to half its attack, and its other effect makes all monsters on the board become water. Which is admittedly a very hilarious floodgate versus specifically Tenpai and Fiendsmith, because it turns Tenpai into water dragons and Fiendsmith, well, just any card on the board, into water fiends, which means they can't get into Requiem with this card on the board. So, you know, that exists. Now, because we have tuners, we are indeed playing synchros, the first one being White Aura Porpoise. So it takes a water tuner and a non-tuner, and on synchro summon, revives a level 4 lore fish monster from your graveyard. So the play you do with this is on synchro summon, oh no, it's actually from hand graveyard, I believe. Hang on, let's zoom in more closely on this guy. So if it's synchro summon, you can special summon the one lower monster from your hand graveyard in defense position. Yeah, there we go. So what you do with this is you use it to special summon Pike, and then it also special summons a monster with the same name from your graveyard, so it summons a second Pike. So this lets you make Bahamut Shark off of your 2 level 3. So say your Neptibus, not your Neptibus, your Poseidra Abyss summons back your 3 level 3s. It'll usually be these 3, and then you can have like these 2 synchro summon into Porpoise, and then Porpoise summons back these 2. And you go into Bahamut Shark, and then go into Toad. And then, because this guy still has his effect, you can use his effect to revive Neptibus as a level 1. And then these 3 make a level 10 synchro. It doesn't come up very often, but it is a line that comes up. But Porpoise you will go into if you've resolved the Coelacanth line. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. It's a pretty good card. Then I'm also playing a level 10 water synchro. I've got this one in here over other choices such as the Ice Barrier level 10 synchro, the Lancia, or the Chen Yang synchro. Both are options you can consider. I just like this one because we have people at my local who may deck evenly matched, and you know, this kind of stops that. And it's also just like one of the more like safer generic waters to go into. Then rounding out Link monsters, so we've got Coral Anemone, who summons a water monster in defense with 1500 or less attack, but you're now waterlocked for the rest of the turn, which means you can do the cheeky play that Marincis does with this guy. You know, banish the board, summon back all the water monsters. Oh no, your opponent's board didn't have water monsters, so they just don't get a board, you kill them. Then 1 copy of Mermail Abyssalacia. During your opponent's turn, you can discard a card for cost to search your deck for a Mermail. So, you know, trigger Atlanteans. And it also has an effect that comes up as if it dies, you send a water monster from your deck to graveyard to, I think, revive a water monster in defense. But it has never come up for me, because if you get to the point where this is being summoned to the board, you've already have gotten full combo off. So they're not going to be able to attack over this, most likely. And then 1 copy of Neptibus, Mermail King Neptibus. So he has 3 relevant effects. The first one is that water monsters it points to can't be targeted by your opponent's cards, so they can't imperm your Toads. Very, very relevant. If a water monster is sent to graveyard for a cost, you can search your deck or your graveyard for an Abyss equip spell and either add it to your hand or equip it. So this searches out Triana during your combo, and during your opponent's turn, you add the Triana back for follow-up. And if he himself gets killed, you search your deck for a Mermail Atlantean and just add it to your hand. So very strong inboard piece, and generally speaking, if you're able to get to like full combo, you have likely gotten this setup going, where you've got, give or take, yeah, this is like, I've had boards of this with the, let's get them in here. Oh, there's Mansion. So let's see. I usually have this, or where's left of this? This. Okay, so like max inboard usually ends on like these guys, and then you have either a Neptibus or an infantry in the hand with this in the graveyard and this in the graveyard. Because what you can do is you'll have the option to have this discard for cost to search, so you can send this to search your deck for one of these. This will trigger Neptibus, and a Neptibus can summon back the Poseidra on your opponent's turn. Poseidon will then dump either infantry or dragoons for cost to bounce a card. If you dump infantry, it's because you need to pop 2 cards. If you're dumping dragoons, then you're searching infantry and you're going to have this vanish to discard this to draw, and this pops. Now, this is not going to be what happens all the time because you'll likely get hand trapped a couple times, so it's usually more like, say, something like this or maybe this. It also depends on like how you play out your hand, because this is a deck that it is very, very easy to just fuck up your lines because of like mismanaging your monster zones or summoning like the wrong things off a Coelacanth. Like, this is not an easy deck to play, and there aren't a lot of like combo guides that like detail like this particular list. Like, there are combo guides for post SUDA, but like I've noticed like a lot of them don't involve like Coelacanth, or if they do, they're doing things like with shift. Like, as far as I know, there's actually like no online guides to Greethus, but people insist that Greethus is the best fish target for this, and I'll give it merit because like Julius played it in the DB grinder tourney, and that guy's one of the best Mermail pilots out there. So like, trying to figure out what you do with this thing has been a bit of a journey in of itself. But this is the type of deck though, like if someone who knows what they're doing plays it, they will do very well. And I can easily see this getting, well, this will be topping regionals, I can see that, and I can see it possibly topping the next YCS or 2. After Blue Eyes comes out, remains to be seen, just because Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is actually a pain in the ass for this deck to deal with, because your usual means of removing it, they can just tag out into like a Crimson Dragon or something else, and Spirit Dragon prevents Coelacanth from working. But in any case, that is the deck in a nutshell. All in all, it's a very fun deck to play, which is ironic because I'm not usually a fan of like the big gas combo decks like Pendulum Sloth and whatnot, but Mermail is always like the kind where like it just feels rewarding to play. And admittedly, it's also like a modern combo deck in the sense that even though like it plays like a pile, it's not quite a pile. Like, your actual engine itself is like 25, 26 cards, but you still have room to play non-engine, which is really cool. And I like this departure from the combo decks of old, where it's like you're just playing strictly 40 combo cards and hoping for the best. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until next time, this is BlueStar899, jacking out.